Welcome to the Your Music Industry Podcast.
The podcast that gives you a direct route into the music industry's greatest minds. Your Music Industry is proudly brought to you by the Liverpool Audio Network with your host, Daniel Fisher-Jones.
Welcome to episode number 14 of the Your Music Industry Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in today. It's an absolute pleasure to be able to share this episode with you. So what have you been up to lately? Have you released any new music? I know I'd love to check it out, so please share it with hashtag Your Music Industry online, and I will go and check it out and have a listen, as I love discovering new music. Today's episode is created in partnership with none other than Help Musicians UK. Help Musicians UK very recently undertook some research that suggests that people working in the music industry are 3 times more likely to experience depression and anxiety compared to the general public. Today's guest has, let's say, had his fair share of suffering in the industry, and through his experience he's found a way to stay sane in the music game. Today's guest has had a 20-year career in the industry, spanning roles including being an artist, producer, manager and even a mentor. He is currently the head of artist development at Diplomats of Sound and has very recently released his own book. I'd like to introduce you to today's guest, Brett Leboff. Welcome, Brett, to the Your Music Industry Podcast. It's an absolute pleasure to talk to you about your industry experience, your book, Staying Sane in the Music Game, and a wealth of other wisdom on not only the music industry, but your thoughts on mental health and some other philosophical kind of practices. So how are you? How are things down in Bristol?
Good, man. Yeah, all good here. Just obviously multitasking, juggling between my day job of head of artist development at Diplomats of Sound, a booking agency, and then doing this stuff with the book, which is really exciting. So, yeah, good days. And it's sunny and the blossom's out.
Same here in Liverpool. It's sunny, makes a change.
Big relief.
Yeah. So, to kick off the episode, could you talk us through the book? So, the story of staying sane in the music game.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fundamental sort of building blocks of the book is a realization. It's taken me, it took me nearly sort of 30 odd years of realizing that there are other altered states available to us other than drink and drugs that are free and available if we're willing to take them. And I think that musicians, I was a pro drummer for many years, and then I went into management and obviously worked with, hundreds of musicians. And I have obviously noticed our propensity to enjoy altered states. And I think that comes from the fact that we go to a very special place when we're creating music. We all know it, and I call it the zone.
Yeah.
It's that timeless subconscious flow. Sometimes you could have an out-of-body experience, or you're not even there and everything's just flowing and it just feels amazing. And I was under the impression the only other way you could get that is from drugs. And then I discovered, I went on lots of journeys and practices learning about the body and the mind. And so I made a connection between the zone that we get to through music and getting to that same place without creating. And I call it zone technique. And, it is basically a form of meditation, but I don't like to use that word because I think it's been abused, that word, really. And no one really knows what it means. And so what I explain in the book is that I will teach you to get to that same zone through a process which is why do we get to that zone? Because we're concentrating on one thing only without trying to change it. We're actually observing, and we're not involved in the outcome. We will observe whatever's coming up. And that's why we're so good on stage. You know, if I dropped a stick, I could grab another stick and carry on. Yeah. Because I didn't think, oh no, I've dropped a stick. And so we've got those skills. We know the zone very, very well. And yet we haven't made this connection about the other ways to get to that zone when we're not on stage, except ecstasy's really good at it. And, you know, weed and, you know, all these other ways. And yeah, I realized, wow, okay, we can get there. So I need to tell people about this, because I'm not saying we won't use all of those other altered states, but if we don't need to rely on them being the only one, we can definitely live much healthier. I'm not saying quit everything, you know, we're musicians, I get it, you know, but how about we don't rely on them? So we can dip in and out and use other tools as well. And once I made that connection, it blew my mind, and I felt like I needed to write about it. And the expansion of that was, how do we run bands? How do we interact with the industry? How do we live in this unconventional world? And I suggest a structure like the theory of music. I suggest daily structures, communication structures, structures within bands. And I'm also pretty clear about the fact that as a creative being, you should read the book, and then, you know, like we learn theory of music and then we know the rules so we can play around with them. You will find your own structure, but it should inspire you to do that. And the bottom line is, this is like another fundamental. I mean, I cover a lot of ground, but this is a biggie, which is, isn't it amazing when we got into music? I certainly find this link between myself and other musicians, which is, we wanted to get out the system. We wanted to just go and do music, you know, and we're not in that. We're not in the rat race, and then it means that we don't have the structures of being at the 9 to 5 or having to do anything except for get the album, get on the road. But there is a lot of flexibility, and I realised that actually we have a responsibility to impose structure on ourselves, because if we don't do that, we become lost. And so actually we need to find what structures work for us. So for example, I know a session guy, he teaches on a Tuesday. He doesn't need to do that, but he's gigged all weekend. Monday's his day off. He cleans his house. Tuesday he goes teaching. And just that, having that structure helps him be all right. Yeah. You know, so that's just a very mundane example, but it's really important.
So in your journey of kind of finding the knowledge and wisdom of in the book, could you talk us through your 20-year career spanning from artist to producer, manager, and even strategist?
Yeah, well, first of all, it takes some time to realise how much I've messed up. I think even until I quit management a few years ago. So basically I started as a pro drummer. I was always going to be a drummer. I decided from the age of 11 I was going to be a drummer because it was my only safe space. So I grew up in a very torrid family situation. I didn't really trust any of the adults around me. Found drums, was addicted to drums, and obviously I realised now it was that altered state that I was getting, which I think probably saved my life, you know. And I became a pro drummer. I went to college, became a pro drummer, did 5 years of that, and actually decided I didn't really want it enough. I saw where it was going, you know, I saw where the contemporaries of mine going to the top of the industry. It's very hard being a drummer. You don't really have any control. You know, I was a facilitator. I loved laying down the groove, but I didn't have control. I felt like I didn't have control over my destiny. I also felt like it was quite limiting for me. I knew I had other skills, communication, for example. I didn't know what I was doing, but I set up a management company and started managing friends' bands. And I was very fortunate that a friend of mine who's a music lawyer, he was a bass player, got tendonitis, did a law conversion. He called me out very early on and just said, "Brett, I don't think you know what you're doing." And I was like, "No, you're right." And he said, "Let me help you." And he became my business partner for about 5 years. And he trained me in all of it, in management, basically. And then obviously I learned through experience and messing up. I was very passive aggressive. I had childhood abuse that I never told anyone about. So it was hidden, and it came in different forms, and I didn't talk about it. And I didn't know about boundaries. I wanted to be loved, and that played out in my professional career. And nearly 8 years ago, my ex-wife, now we're good mates, I talk about stuff in the book, actually. You know, I'm very personal in the book. I kind of out myself. She called me out. She said, "I think you've got loads of stuff you haven't dealt with." She used to deal with mental health in secure hospitals, high secure hospitals. So people that had done some very bad stuff, but they didn't really know what they'd done. And she was trying to teach them social etiquette, basically, and norms. So she called me out, and I did 1.5 years of psychotherapy. And then, which just got me talking about it and being aware of behaviours patterns that I had, which went all the way back. I had to confront my abusers, which is very tough. I had then went on loads of different personal development courses, and every time I did one, more stuff. It's like peeling back the layers and understanding who I actually am, you know. And I was then able last year to start realizing that I was piecing it all together. I started writing, I mind mapped out the book and started writing. And I didn't know really where it was going. I didn't know if it was going to be helpful or any good. It was definitely helpful for me. But actually what that did was I was processing where I went wrong, or where the bands that I managed went wrong, and unpicking it all and then putting it all back together again. And also trying to illustrate all the things that come up. And obviously being in the industry for 20 years, we all see the same stuff coming up all the time. But it was like, yeah, well, this happened and I could have done this, but I didn't, or this lot could have done this. But then also, why don't we, you know, like rehearsals, for example, it's a classic situation. Everyone comes in from a different place. You might have part-time jobs, or someone's a pro and been in the studio with someone else. You come in, whoever sets up first starts playing. No one knows where anyone's at. And you're about to hit on a very deep level where you're communicating through music. So I just suggest, when you've set up, don't start playing, sit on the floor and just have a check-in. You know, just chat to each other. So stuff like that. I've just gone all the way through all of my experiences and try to lay them out like how it could be better for all of us.
I know from Liverpool Audio Network's perspective, for our team meetings now, whenever we start team meetings, it's all about checking in with each other where we're at. We never used to do that, and it's that same concept. It's being aware where everyone's at. So in the book, you mention a quote that I absolutely admire from Viktor Frankl's A Man's Search for Meaning. It is, if you have a why, you can live anyhow. So do you have a personal why, whether a mission, vision, or even a belief?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty deep and quite mystical, but I think I also kind of say this in the book, actually. I share it, don't I? Because I say, look, you don't have to believe this, but I can't write this book without sharing what gets me going. I have a very deep mystical belief that the only point of us being here on Earth is to improve ourselves and get better. And by doing that, we are then more available for other people, which makes our communities and societies better. Because once I'm happy with what I'm doing, I've got headspace for someone else.
Yeah.
But it starts with me. And you know, when you're unhappy, you're unavailable. So I have a deep responsibility to always get better. And in that process, the challenges that come up, you know, I think it's a very cosmic thing that when you overcome a challenge, it might come up again, and then you get through it, and then it's like, oh, that's not a challenge anymore. And I really see that pattern. It's almost like a universal law. And so it's my belief that I'm here to overcome the next challenge. And then also that the higher level is seeing these challenges as a kind of gift to grow. So, I mean, I end the book with that quote, which I came up with a long time ago. And luckily the guy that was originally going to publish the book, who's a very good friend of mine, but he just didn't have the room for it, reminded me that I said this quote, which is, the struggle is the challenge, and the challenge is a gift for us to grow. So, yeah, I think that's my meaning. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that, because it is all about developing yourself as when you are. Yeah, it's. I find that to be very Buddhist. Is there any kind of Buddhist or spiritual practices that heavily influence kind of your?
Yeah, well, it's interesting actually. My springboard into all of this was looking at lots of different religion and actually seeing the similarities in them rather than the differences. And I think what tends to happen in a lot of the religion that we hear about without delving in sounds very dogmatic and ritualistic. And like, you must do this, don't do that, light these candles, use this scent, whatever it is. And actually, what I noticed when I started looking into mysticism as a subject, I actually found that pretty much, I think across the board, all the religions believe in reincarnation, which then means that it puts a meaning on us being here. Because what happens, according to the mystical sides of all of these religions, is you die, you spend some time as a soul and a spirit, and then you come back again. And whatever challenges you didn't get over in the last life, you get again, but also you choose the circumstances of certain fundamental circumstances of your life to set those challenges up. And that seems to be across the board in all the religions agree with that. So this is just ancient wisdom. So then I say, okay, forget the religion side of it. This is just ancient wisdom that's been passed down to us for thousands of years. So there's like a thing there.
With that ancient wisdom, with that understanding of the mysticism and how it all connects, did you kind of take that as your muse and your inspiration on how to apply it to the music industry so people can kind of find an accessible way to that?
I'm not that comfortable with transmitting that meaning that I believe in so much to others. Like, I'm very comfortable in saying that this is I'm very comfortable. I really connect to that story. Yeah. But I don't expect others to, unless they really feel it when I'm saying that stuff. If they're like, oh yeah, that's awesome. I can see that. Great. But if you've got some other, I often have a conversation with a friend who goes, nah, mate, when you're dead, you're dead. It's all over. And I'm like, well, how do you get up in the morning? And they'll, be like, well, I'm really passionate about this. I love people. I love life. It's, and I'm like, great. If that works for you. So it kind of comes back to what you said is you have to have a meaning. I don't think it matters what it is, but again, with musicians, we're very good at connection. We connect very well on a very deep level. We don't use words. Some people say language is not good enough sometimes. Yeah. And then actually, I think music, that's why we dig music, because it goes somewhere else. So we're communicating like that as musicians and music industry pros who love it and really connect to it. So then connect to your meaning like that. And that's actually, it links into another thing that I cover in the book, which is we've got amazing attributes as musicians. Awareness and also music industry pros. Again, this book does speak to music industry people as well, because we're all in this game and we've all got that deep connection to it, because you couldn't, everyone knows industry pros are on probably a third of the money that they could be on if they were in the corporate world. There's a few lucky ones out there, but normally that's so. The money's not in music anymore. They'd be in tech instead, or there's some kind of deep bond. And how about we use these subtle tools that we have, like awareness, being able to connect to people on a deep level very quickly, the understanding of space and where you fit, and being able to tap into a subconscious flow and shut the conscious mind off. And there's a list of about 20 of them in the book. And then I say, what if we use those in our daily life? Like, has it occurred to you that you have those tools and they're transferable into every day of your life? When you're not with musicians. Yeah. When you're not in the practice room, when you're not on stage, you've got those. So think about that. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that certainly answered my question. Yeah, definitely. I absolutely adore that. Personally, I've got a 7-day silent Zen retreat in a week's time. I'm as I regularly practice Zen, so it's interesting how this has come, the whole book and the practices, how I see it resonates with some practices in Zen, how it's all kind of comes.
Yeah, well, I did learn a lot from Vipassana, which I did, which sounds similar. It's 10 days silent meditation retreat, which on paper is probably the most awful thing I could have done. Got really into it. And a lot of it's about, like I said, observing without trying to change, acceptance, not reacting. And these tools, developing it made me much more aware of feelings in my body. And if I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling in my body first, and then I can go, Brett, you're angry, before I show that I'm angry. And I go, what are we going to do about that then? And that's another tenet, is having a chat with yourself like you're a mate. Okay, Brett, so you're angry. So what are you going to do about that, mate? It's like, this could go dark if I react right now. Let's have a think about it, get myself out of the situation. Yeah, it happened with my girlfriend a few weeks ago, and I just thought, I've got to go upstairs, and I just go and sat on the bed and had a breathe, you know. And then I come back and go, sorry about that. I felt anger. I would have just snapped at you. I didn't want to do that, so I took myself out, had a little sit. Okay, now I can go back, and why don't we? Yeah, let's that Vipassana taught me that, checking in, because it happens in practice, right? So this is any practice. So that's also a link with zone technique, getting into the zone. How many times are we practicing the instrument? I used to have this all the time, you know, and you mess up. You go, oh God. If you keep getting angry at messing up, it makes practice really difficult. So what I might do is go, I slow it down 10 BPM. Like, why aren't I getting it? Oh, because it's too tough. Practice shouldn't be that difficult, because actually you just go, well, I'm just going to, if I mess up, I'm just going to stop and go back in again. But what we tend to do is allow the conscious mind to start chatting like, you're never going to nail it, you're going to be here for hours, you're not that good. And it's like there's no need for us reacting that way. We could just go, okay, yeah, messed up again. Brett, you're going to mess up, mate. Don't worry about it. Of course you are. You're practicing something. Talk to yourself as a friend. Don't react. Observe. Accept. And actually, it doesn't need to be that challenging. I also tell people when you're doing that, it's the same thing as doing that away from the instrument, that I teach these tools of this idea of focusing on one thing without trying to change it, and just normally that's the breath. And then we start observing areas of the body and go, oh, I'm quite tense there, but not going, oh, why am I so tense? It's terrible. Just going, oh, that's interesting. Why am I? Oh, very tense. Wow. Okay, I'm just going to check out that tenseness for a bit. And what cosmically happens is the tenseness dissipates. As long as you're not trying to make it dissipate, you're just observing it, it actually does dissipate just by looking at it without any judgment. And so again, that's a transferable tool back into our daily lives.
Help Musicians UK is proud to support this episode of the Your Music Industry podcast. Help Musicians UK is an independent charity which aims to make a meaningful difference to the lives of musicians. It offers a broad range of help, support and opportunities to empower musicians at all stages of their lives. The charity provides an integrated programme of health and welfare services and creative development funding opportunities. There is also Music Minds Matter, an around-the-clock listen and ear service and support line for the music industry, as well as a unique hearing health scheme which aims to prevent hearing problems that would otherwise bring musicians' careers to an untimely end. Help Musicians UK's largest funding opportunity, Do It Differently, is a pivotal new fund for independent music creators, offering 360-degree support benefits across creative, health, well-being and business development. For more information on Help Musicians UK, or to find out more about the support that could be available to you, please visit helpmusicians.org.uk. So, the zone technique. When I was listening to the book, I found that it was like a mixture of meditation and also the flow state. It kind of had the benefits of the both.
Yes.
Could you talk us through kind of how you've maybe used the zone technique in your day-to-day life, creatively and productively, if that even is a word?
Well, I tell you what I did was very, very deep meditation, Buddhist meditation. But I also played drums for 20 odd years. So what I did is I made the connection, and I've just made it accessible to musicians. So I'm just saying, look, you get this. We know what we're doing here. Come on, like, just follow this. You get it. Like, I don't even have to be that long-winded about it, because you know when you get to that zone, you know it. So you know where you're going, and then if you're not getting there, just do what you do when you're practicing really well, which is just don't get annoyed when you get distracted. You just go, oh, I got distracted. Oh, I'm going to go back and focus again. And the more we do that, our minds become very strong. And I've been practicing this daily. I mean, I normally do about an hour a day, like half an hour in the morning, half an hour at night. So every time I've been doing that for maybe 5 years, but then all the time that I was drumming as well. So I've made that link. So it's like, but we've all been doing it as long as that, like a long, long time. We've actually been doing this zone technique thing. And all I'm doing is explaining it in a non-esoteric way. Because that I think the problem with when you say the word meditation, no one's really explained that word unless you go on a 10-day silent retreat. And that's not necessarily accessible to people. So I'm just going, look, I've studied this. I've studied music. I think that you'll best understand it if I describe it like this, because that's how I understood it. So that'll probably help.
It's making it accessible for the music industry, isn't it? It's making it accessible, understandable, and also actionable as well, as putting it in the context of playing your instrument or doing something that you put hyper focus into. As you said, they understand that state that they want to the zone. So taking it more to an industry-wide perspective now. In the book, you mentioned how, compared to the industry a fair few years ago, there's no barrier to entry anymore, and the game has no rules. Would you be able to walk me and the listeners through your thoughts on this, and maybe how it can impact on the health and well-being of people in the industry?
Yeah, something that's just come up for me is the idea that you need to believe in what you do more than anyone else now, because back in the day, if someone believed in you, they could make it happen for you, So, I try and steer away from how to make it in the music industry in this book. So there's tons of books on that. And also, because of the way the industry is now, there's so many different ways because there's no barrier to entry. I think you need a lot more patience, a lot more belief in yourself than you ever had to, because it's a much slower process. There's so much information out there now, it could be 10 to 15 years before it's your profession from the start. Some people, again, get lucky, there are opportunities of blowing up online, going viral, but, these are always exceptions, I think. There's one thing I always say, which is if you would you be doing this if you weren't making any money out of it? Is this do you have to do this? And if you do, then that's a very positive win for following this path of being in music. And if you think, well, actually I could do that as well, I'd be like, well, why is that more solid? You have to really think about whether you want to do it. Needs a lot of commitment. I mean, it always has done, but it's now more than ever, less revenue streams, potentially more touring. The analogy of someone that digs a well. So it's like, you're digging a well for water, but you get halfway down, you don't hit the water, and then you start digging another well, and then another well, and it's like, you can't do that. So the reason why I'm in management is because I've been in management for like 15 years, and before that I was a drummer. So the whole of I'm 40 now. From the age of 20, I was pretty much a pro drummer, and it's like, I chose that. And there's been times where I've thought I've dug myself in. Like, actually, maybe I do want to do something else. It's like, sorry, mate, that's all you know now. And it has been rocky, and there have been times of like, really? And I did quit for 3 years, and I thought, what am I going to do with my life? And then I came back again, because it's like, it's all I know.
Yeah.
and it actually is a thing, like, the longer you do it, the more likely it's going to happen. You have to learn from every mistake and try not to make it again, and you probably will, and then you don't get frustrated by making that same mistake again. It's also talking to yourself as a friend, trying to support yourself, and learning from everyone. The people that I know that are the most successful in the industry are much better than me at listening. They listen to everyone and they just go, yeah, man. And then they make up their mind later,
Yeah.
But I've often been quite sort of, I guess in my worst times, pig-headed, bit dogged, and I'm still learning. I'm still refining myself, all the time. And I think that's really important, not taking yourself too seriously. Compromise. People that don't compromise in this game don't get anywhere, because no one wants to work with anyone that's not prepared to move an inch. I've worked with artists like that. You can't do anything. It's impossible. And it's so unrewarding. It's like, what? There's no collaboration here. I'm just your admin bitch. That's what's happened before.
Yeah.
And it's like, you won't take any, we're not doing this together. So it's like, valuing people, really feeling blessed that anyone wants to give you any feedback, even if it's criticism, because that means they're investing in you. Because otherwise they just wouldn't bother, because they think, well, there's no point saying anything to them. So like, it's like a warm, open heart and a belief in yourself and looking outside of yourself at what's going on around you. As in, if someone offers you a leg up, you don't think, well, that's not good enough. You just go, well, look, at least someone's asking to help. As long as it's not an onerous contract, obviously do your due diligence. But really, I'd say if you're at the beginning of the road and someone goes, oh, I'll help you out, just here, let's do a little contract, get it checked over by a lawyer. Great. Someone wants to help. And then it's building a team from there, and then you start getting the excitement because other people are getting on board. And also as a musician, you're driving that atmosphere. So you then have to work much harder than everyone else. So then I say in the book, the unfortunate thing here is you do all the creation, you might have a big night, and then you've got a business meeting at 10:30 the next morning. Well, maybe you should have booked it for 3 p.m, Think about that. But if you've booked it for 10:30, you damn be there. Yeah. Because if you're not, I don't want to work with you. Because if you can't even get to the first meeting on time, then I'm going to question, am I going to be working with this person in 2 years and they're going to flake out? Definitely don't cancel on me. We're screwed. Right, how about I cancelled this podcast today? Then you're like, oh, really? Like, he's written the book and then do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, they've done the record and then I'm going to help them. You're helping me here. We're like having a good chat. People are going to hear it. We're helping other people. So there's a responsibility for both of us to do this, because this is our gift to throw this out and hopefully help inspire some people. So it's like that, actually the responsibility of being a creator. Instead of who's going to help me, and then all the victim stuff and no one likes me. And it's like, no, you've got a great responsibility. And if you take that seriously, people will see that and they'll get on board. And then also, if you don't take yourself too seriously, because that's very hard to work with as well. Appreciate that you're human, you're going to make mistakes, other people make mistakes. There's a lot, and it's all in the book. And it's an audio book as well, so if you can't be asked reading it, like you, Daniel. It's so great, audio books, isn't it? You can do the washing, you can do the washing up, you can cook, you can clean, you can go for a walk, and you've got the words in your ears. It's brilliant, actually. So sorry, we nearly would have cut this short for me.
Oh no, it's okay.
Insulting you. So, but they are great. They really are. Yeah.
So you've just mentioned a whole wealth of kind of tips for upcoming artists. But if there was one tip for upcoming artists or industry folk in relation to health, well-being, and even routine and schedules, what would that one tip be? It could be one you've already mentioned.
Okay. Be unapologetically your truth. As in, you need to be really happy with just the way you are, the way you behave, the way you talk to people, the way, and happy that you might mess that up. But when I say be unapologetically your truth, I know that very well because I hid my truth for the majority of my life. So until 7 years ago, people didn't know that I had sexual abuse, physical abuse, from family members, my good friends from uni, bands I've been in. No one knew. I literally hid it. And I only realised how much that was stopping me being my truth when I came out, you know, and I started telling people about it and gone through the process of healing and understanding why I was how I was and what happened, and confronting some of them. Some I couldn't, they're just not around. But, doing what I could to learn about all of that, which was a very long process, probably much longer because I'd hid it for so long. So then, because I was telling people all this personal information that I'd uncovered, and they'd be like, what? Are you for real? I'd be like, yeah, that happened. And then they would start telling me stuff that they hadn't been telling anyone. And then I realised that, okay, so by being my truth, unapologetically, and not a victim, saying, look, I'm going to tell you something, I'm good with it, but I just want to tell you because you ought to know, like, this is part of me. And also friends would be like, I thought there was something going on with you, man. Just could never put my finger on it, It's like, wow, that's mad, isn't it? And I think a lot of people felt like that there was some sort of lack of
harmony,
togetherness in me. Yeah, there's something not right about that guy. Because I've always been a bit of a clown. I'm an extrovert. I've always loved the interaction, but I guess if I was hiding something, there's something slightly inauthentic about me. Because, good friends say, we haven't really changed that much, Brett. I'm like, on the outside, but I feel put together, I feel much more. So then I've now got the confidence, and also because I understand my body reacting, like feelings I'm having, and I understand where they're coming from, and I understand where they're coming from my childhood, and all of that stuff, I can now just go, no, I'm not doing that. I'll tell you why. Or I go, I'm not sure about that. I need a few days to think about it. But I'm very, very sure of myself now. And I can be my truth. So that means not being defensive, not needing to be, because I like myself. I'm happy with myself. So if I mess up, I'll just go, sorry, I did that. I did it. I've got to sort it out. If I don't really care what people think of me anymore, which is massive, because I definitely did. Like, some of my biggest mistakes came from caring too much what people thought. So I would hide behind passive aggressive responses and hide what I was actually thinking, or not even knowing what I was thinking, and reacting very quickly in bad ways because I care. Well, you can't think that I'm like, and justify myself. And it always sounds bad, it always comes across bad. So I think, be unapologetically your truth. And if you don't know what that is, then you need to go on a journey and learn about it. And if you don't know what that looks like, read the book, because there's lots of ideas in there. It's a springboard. Yeah, I'm not saying that. I'm saying it flippantly, but I wouldn't be promoting this. Like someone said to me the other day, do you think it's good? And I was like, yeah. Because otherwise I wouldn't do it. I'd be perfectly happy to say, that was great for me, put it on the shelf, let's never speak of it again, and get on with the artist development and the management. But I actually think it's a really good tool for people. So I
totally agree.
Listen to it. Yeah. And that's a massive step for me to get to that. It's taken me about a year to get there, from the creation of it, to take a step back. Go, is this actually good? I've listened to the audiobook a lot. I've read it a lot. And I go, actually, this is... I would love someone to have told me this stuff 20 years ago.
Yeah. Because I've read a lot of books, because currently right now I'm doing a 100 book challenge in 2019. So Staying Sane in the Music Game is one of them, number 26.
Right.
And it's the first book that I've come across. There might be more out there that I'm not aware of, but it's the first book I've come across that is talking about the music industry from a self-development point of view. But it's, as I said before, it's accessible, it's easy to understand, it's consumable. And I love that about the book.
Well, the strength of it is, it's uniquely my... you see, I felt like that's uniquely my job. I don't know how many other people have been a pro drummer, a manager, and also gone through the shit that I went through when I was growing up and hid it from everyone, and then had to grow and learn in my 30s and unpick it all and deal with that. I talked about the responsibility of art. I actually now believe, because I learned through experience, I actually think it's my responsibility to tell that story and share it. And I didn't think that when I was writing it. It's just only in the last few months, because when I was writing it, I was totally in the bubble, So it's like, actually, no, this is good, and I need to start selling this, which is a very difficult place to be in. And I understand artists that are doing that for their art. It's like, actually, if you really believe in it, then you can say, well, this is my gift to the universe. This is my gift to the people. And it's actually my responsibility to get it out there and to do all the hard work on the promo and really get behind it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you don't believe in it.
And it's hard to sell if you don't believe in it.
If you do believe in it and you're not getting it out there, that's going to fuck you up. Can I swear? It's going to fuck you up. I'll say it again. So, if you don't believe in it, do something else. And that should be part of being your truth.
Yeah. So we are unfortunately coming to the end of the podcast. However, I do have one more question before my last one. And this is one that we ask every single podcast guest, because it gets some really interesting answers. So this could be on a local, national or international scale. But what change would you like to see in the music industry in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, I'm not... I actually propose, I think it's in the introduction of the book, what change could this book make? Like, if you actually get into it and you follow it, like, what change could it make to the creative process if you can get into the zone before you pick up your instrument? So that you're already in a higher state of consciousness before, so you're not actually using your art to escape all the shit. You're actually using your art to create from your deepest self, and you've already got into that clear space where your conscious mind is not reacting. I'm not saying that it's not good to create art from a place of torment, because it can be, and we need that stuff as well. But what about if you as I said, you're in that state, you're in the zone before you pick up your instrument. What could that do to the creative output? And the other thing is, I need this book as well, so I use it. If I can live by everything in the book all the time, great. And sometimes I do and sometimes I don't, but I'm very, very aware. And what I do really well now is I have a lot of tools to deal with the challenges. So life brings you shit all the time. It's never going to stop. What's changed for me is I've got a massive toolbox which works. And if it has cosmically changed my existence and everything about the way that I live. And I'm happy when I wake up in the morning. One of the saddest things, it's still answering your question, very long-winded. The saddest thing for me is realizing how incredibly unhappy I've been for most of my life. And I would say till about 3 years ago, so I started this journey 7 years ago, till about 3 years ago, I actually hated myself, and I've had to realize that. So this book is a reflection of all of my learnings on how to live a happy life in the music industry and be happy with myself. And so it's completely transformed my existence. And I think if this can spread and people use this as the tool it's intended, then not only could it affect the creative output, but it could also be one of the parts of transforming the mental health of the music industry. One of the tools, because the others is chatting to everyone about it, panels and systems in place from other places, in structures and the way that we do things, even down to tour schedules or whatever it is. There's definitely loads of stuff that can happen, but I think that this could be a huge contribution to changing the music industry. And I would hope that 3 to 5 years probably, that we really start getting a massive change for the better in mental health, because it is something that's just always been there, and thankfully we're now talking about it, which is only the first step. I say, awareness is only the first step. This conversation is going to happen for the next probably 5 to 10 years before we nail it, because all we're doing right now is we're starting to become aware by talking about it. So we're very early doors, and I think it's great to be involved in this conversation. And thank you, Daniel, for having a chat.
No, thank you for being a part
and sharing this stuff. Yeah.
So the final question is, other than the book Staying Sane in the Music
It's like
Game,
the encore.
Where can people find you online?
Just www.stayingsane.org. So .org. Stayingsane.org. There's loads of free resources on there, so you don't have to buy the book. You basically, audio book samples are there. It's about 12 videos, like bite-sized vids. There's podcasts that I've been doing with musicians and managers, and links to all the where you can buy the book, which is in all the usual online stores. So yeah, that's it. www.stayingsane.org.
Fantastic. Well, the links to the books, the links to your content will all be in the show notes. But yeah, thank you very much, Brett, for being a guest on the Your Music Industry podcast.
It's great. Thanks, Daniel. Thanks for the chat.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome.
I'd like to say a huge thank you to Brett for being on the podcast. He's been such a fantastic guest, and his book, Staying Sane in the Music Game, really does fill this gap for me of personal development aimed at the music industry. So yeah, thank you, Brett, and good luck with the book. I would absolutely love to hear what you've thought of this episode. Please let us know over on social media with #YourMusicIndustry. Have you enjoyed this episode? If so, please do share it with someone who you think will enjoy it, as wisdom is best shared. I'd like to say a huge thank you to you for tuning in to today's episode. It does mean a lot to share this episode with you, and I do understand you could be doing a whole range of other things right now, such as working on music. I'd also like to extend that thanks to Help Musicians UK, our partner for this episode. The Music Minds Matter listening ear and support service is there for anyone who works in music who is struggling to cope. It doesn't have to be a crisis or about music. There are trained advisors there to help. Please contact Music Minds Matter day or night on 0808 802 8008 or email mmm@helpmusicians.org.uk. Until the next episode of Your Music Industry, I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you next time.